This is Ken Morrow. This is for cartography and geovisualization. Professor Davis wanted to do something different. Wanted to have a little bit of fun with this last one since you said we could do a video. So this video is based on incident symbology. There were some journal articles listed that we could have read talking about emergency management symbology and the framework that goes behind it and how it plays into cartography, but based off the fact that when I went to look for those and open those up, some of them, you actually had to pay for. So I found a similar, article or report put out by the NAPSG Foundation. Um, that's also in management, in partnership with Ardent Management, talking about symbology when it comes to emergency management, and I mean that could be police situations, firefighting, 911, infrastructure of the city in a wooded mountainous area. Living in Idaho and Colorado, we always used this symbology. There are other organizations like the ICCS that modified symbology for fires, but it was really important to understand that when you make a map for public safety or for situational awareness, that's you use coherent symbology where the overall public can understand and where incident command operatives can also look at the map and see what's going on. The basic thing was always using the right color of color ramp. You had to use a color palette that explained quickly what the situational awareness was. They show a couple areas. They show, the choropleth map. They show a earthquake map, hurricane map, all using this, ranging from white to no severity to the pinkish purples for extreme severity or highest category possible. I know with fire mapping we were doing a lot of green, yellow, red, but as you can see in their examples that it played really well and was incredibly important. Like, National Atmospheric Release Advisory was there was a hazardous release, and they created a buffer showing who's going to be affected in an area and how far the release is traveling. Then you had to decide on operational status, and once again, it was basically white through red. Other organizations do different things, but from working in the field, this is the industry standard, and it's quick, it's easy, and it's extremely important. Like red, severe or closed status. Like an example, like say bridge collapse, the road might be in the red. If nothing's going on and there's no base at it, it might be in the white. It could also be used for evacuation zones too. Then, of course, depending on the type of map we were trying to create or represent, you had your emergency hazard symbology where there are probably over 100 that are being used, but these are some of the basics like, blocked access, fire, of course, flood, radioactivity. In some parts of the country, believe it or not, they'll make maps showing where child abduction has occurred using this symbology. Very interesting. It proved the point when they were doing that map. And they also had fall hazards too. Alerts and warnings were a key issue in cartography for the environmental GIS area due to the fact that you could put out watches and warnings. NWS will create a map sometime showing it's tornado watch. They'll use the symbology that's showing, a little yellow triangle or orange triangle with the tornado in the middle of it, and ICCS and other IFC, International Fire Center, will use symbology like the wildland fire, with the red triangle with the tree on fire. I know a lot of things with SEOC, the State Emergency Command Center. We had to also incorporate infrastructure, which, like it suggests, as hospitals, police stations, bridges, rail stations, pharmacies, so they know what's going on with those. Also veterinarian clinics that were set up as an emergency animal substation during a wildfire, especially in Colorado, Montana, and Idaho. And then they showed the key thing was, especially on a fire line, where was your incident command center or your incident commander if you had a SARS group search and rescue in a fire branch. They also used camps to show where the camps were, where bases were, and where airstrips were. Some of the other symbology they'd use is, where dip ponds or dip lakes were used for, helicopters or airplanes to get water to fight wildland fires. There's so much symbology that is used in emergency management. It's really hard to go into every little one and explain, if I agree and if it has cartographic value, because majority of them do. Line features. Line features is the main one I use with BLM. I will use them personally, mapping out perimeters of wildland fires, and then they get modified daily. Also, you will be using line data like to create fire breaks, dozer lines, reacclimation areas, for a burned emergency response team after a fire to go out and look at it, but we use a ton of line data, and when it comes to emergency management, mapping line data is, I think, one of the most important symbologies you can use because it tells you exactly what is going on. Of course, then we go back into basic symbology that is used. You can use an ARC Pro, in the scheme, safety and security, water, shelter, health, medical, power, fuel, communications, transportation, and hazardous materials. I've used a lot of these several times. I think they're incredibly important. They do add a lot of value because you want to be able to see, like, say, patient movement in a hurry. If one hospital's on divert and they're going to another hospital, you need to know that there's patient movement occurring. Same with, power grid. If power grid's down, and you also are having to look at, our railways or mass transit systems, what's going on with them in real-time mapping. And then finally, you're talking about incident stabilization. That's always changing. Gray, unknown. Blue's base data, red is unstable, and you will always see them using incident stabilization color markers during wildfires to show containment or to show if an area is stable. And finally, you have the pre-incident symbology that is used. That is, really important because you can show your access points. Features and shutoffs. This would be more used on an emergency control map or emergency situation map for firefighters in an urban area, possibly in a building. It can be used for law enforcement to show what is going on before they send in a tactical unit like SWAT in, so they know how to turn different things off. But I will say in the closing of this whole little presentation that emergency management symbology is key. It does have categorical value when it comes to cartography. It's just really important to understand how to use this symbology, and you use it daily. It could be for, like, a SWAT or tactical unit going into a building where there might be hostages, or you're doing it for a wildland fire, for a community that's getting ready to get overtaken by a fire. So this is why I was really interested in this, and this is why I found this article. It was just, there's so much incredible data that's being reflected. You have to be able to interpolate what is going on, but since I do this for the government, I have a little bit more better understanding. But I mean, this is really a key point if you're going to try to create an emergency management or situational awareness map of an area, just specifically what's going on. This is Ken Morrow, and thanks.